Hi everyone. This is my first attempt at trying to make a tutorial, kind of showing you guys what I do. I know a lot of you have been asking, so I'm going to try this out. Hopefully it's clear enough for you guys. This particular video I already made before, I think a few months ago, so I'm not going to do everything. I'm not going to do every little step. I'm just going to kind of show you how I did it and then kind of show you the finished product as I'm doing it. Only because some of these steps were just very time consuming. I'm just not trying to do them over again, but I'll show you enough. But I also want to thank you guys again for all your support and all your love for these videos. It really means a lot, and anything you guys can do to help me out, I would appreciate, because this is I don't really have a budget for this, right? So I do this for fun, but like anything would help. So with that said, I'm going to show you guys how I made the video I showed you at the beginning of this. We're going to start out with, I did 3 takes. So we got the green screen, and then we got the beauty shot with the lighting how I want it, and then we have the light shot. So what I do is I throw them all in here together. I always delete the audio, and then I layer them on top of each other, kind of like this. Now, for the lights, what we do is I change the composite to add. You can see they're not lined up. So then, the next thing I do is, I'll uncheck that because it makes it a little easier. So I scroll in, and then I just kind of figure out how to align them where they look, and that looks right. Yeah. So then you kind of play it through. Everything kind of lines up, right? Okay. And then I get these lined up. Okay, so now those two are lined up. Now we got to line this up with the green screen pass. So this, I just kind of make it half, and then I try to line them up, which looks pretty close, but not quite. Let's see. Just like that. So now, you can see there's this shot, and then the green screen, right? Okay, so now these 3 are lined up, and then what I like to do is, again, have these exact, because when I make the matte, it doesn't line up unless the video is the exact same length. So actually we'll have to re-render these 2, just to make it easier. I don't have to, but it makes it easier. So now, okay. So now we have the three elements lined up: lights, beauty, and green screen. So now, next thing I do is I create the matte from this green screen pass. So we'll switch over to the color tab. And so these are all shot in on a Panasonic S5, so they have a V-Log, is what I like to use. So these will be definitely color corrected when they're done. So I add another node, because this first one I'm going to apply temporal noise reduction, because this was shot at ISO 4000. There's a lot of noise, and it helps with the green screening actually. So my computer really only I can do more than 2 frames, but once you get into like 3 and 4 and beyond, sometimes it says like GPU maxed out and won't render and things like that. So then I do this. I kind of about somewhere around 10 to 15%, just a little bit, just to help smooth it out a little bit. But it does slow down my workflow a little bit, so I'm gonna mute it for now. So now, for the green screening, I go over here to this tab, this qualifier. I switch over to this box. I think it's 3D, and then what I do is I kind of just drag a line. Actually, you know what? let's try it this way. We're going to drag this line here, and then we're going to add this as well. All right. So now I right click here, add alpha output, drag this here. Now we see the ship. So I reverse it, and now we have mostly the ship with this light and stuff that's still, you know, whatever. So that's kind of that, and you can see there's issues and stuff I'm gonna have to work out. Now, once I put the noise reduction on there, it does clean up a lot. So that's really nice. I'm gonna leave that for now. So this is where you just kind of have to tinker around with it and do what needs to be done. I do a lot of guesswork and just kind of see, yeah. Cleaning black and cleaning white is okay, but you see it kind of like sometimes it over smooths it, or in this case there's too much green showing through. So I don't want to do this. We'll kind of do it like that maybe. There's also I can do a negative. Let's see if that. No, let's see, because then okay. One thing I like to do is shadow mid-tone highlight. If I do shadow and punch all the way up and then mid-tone all the way up, a lot of times that fills in those gaps. And then we see there's some extra there, which I can probably black clip out. Yeah, black clip. It doesn't have to be perfect, because what I'm going to eventually do is I'm going to draw like a shape around this and just focus on the ship. So even though all this isn't being picked up, it's not going to be there anyway. I'll show you. So let's see. Maybe clean white a little bit, and then this in-out ratio I bring down and blur just a little bit, and it brings it in just a little bit. So that's kind of the general. It's not perfect, but eventually it's going to look like kind of like that. So that's kind of the gist of it. And again, when I put the noise reduction, you'll kind of see it smooths that out. And just smooth some of these edges out a little bit. All right, so now you can clearly see around the ship it's all black, which is nice, which means when I draw the shape I can keep it pretty close to the ship. And then at that point sometimes I can even adjust the green screen once I realize all I need is this. So like the stuff over here, for instance, might be the same colors like on the ship. So then I can go ahead and remove it from the ship, but it doesn't actually affect anything else because it's not even in the frame anymore. I'll show you. All right, so I'll kind of start where I can see the whole ship for this when I draw the shape. Yeah, so we go here, I do curve, and I just kind of start drawing some points. The important points are right here for me, right up against the base where it touches the ship, and I kind of just draw some more around the ship, something like that. And now you can kind of see just the ship. What I've recently learned is this tracking, which actually comes in really in handy. So now what I do is I'll click play forward, so it'll go to the rest of the video, and it'll track, and the box kind of moves with it. It's not perfect. I'll have to manually adjust it, and then I'll go backward, do the same thing, let it finish through. It does a decent job of following the ship. It's hard because this is moving in like 3D space, and it's also green screened, and the tracker can't always figure that out. That's what makes this type of work very hard. All right, so it stopped. That's okay. Didn't go all the way. I just need a few points just to get this going. So we'll go back to here. And then what I do is I click the frame button, because then I can change. I can key them. You'll see. Don't do it on clip. Clip. What that will do is, like for instance, if I move it here now, if I do like this, it'll stay to the right. It'll still do the same movement, but it'll just, it'll it affects the whole timeline, versus if I do frame, I can do something like this, and you can see that it just moves that point. So this is the very tedious part. This is the part I hate the most of this whole workflow, because now I gotta basically keep this masked out and make sure the ship is in the box. Okay, and I'll go backward and do the same thing, just kind of at various frames. Let's see, and see part of the engine's cut off, so let's fix that. So now you can kind of see it follows a little better. Probably not perfect. Actually, okay, I followed it pretty well. And then we'll go back a little further, do the same thing. Right, okay, you get the idea. So basically we kind of follow it like that until, right now it looks like it's just a ship. No, nothing's showing. And then various things, you know, again, just pop up, like sometimes there's various color changes and like a, you know, something will show up for a second, or like with lights. So you just have to, this is the tedious part, really. All right, so you get the idea. I'm not going to finish this because it's a lot of work. So, and then I drag this here, because now this shows just the matte, right? So now we have a created matte, and what I will do is I will save this as a file, just the matte, and I already have that, and it looks just like this. Actually, we'll just leave it. You can see there's the created matte. Okay, so now I'm done with the green screen part. Now we have this, the rest of the ship. So again, the easiest way I found to add the matte is to just resave these videos exactly how they are right now. So I do render in place. They were shot H.265 on my camera. I do maintain to leave it 10-bit. So I'll do that, and we'll just save it in there. And then we'll let that render. Okay. I'll do the same thing for the lights. The lights, because it's such a dark, and there's a lot of noise. I like to do temporal noise reduction here as well. I do it kind of around 10 or 15. And that way, when it's rendered, because this slows down my workflow. So if I do it ahead of time, and then we'll render in place, same settings. And we'll let that go. Okay. So now these two are rendered. And then what I'll do, let's go over the color tab. And right click, add matte, timeline mattes, and it's this one right here. And then add alpha output and drag that. I see what I did. Okay, so I don't feel like redoing the matte pass again. So what I did initially was I actually sped this up 2x and then saved them. Everything was made 2x, even like 2 times speed, even the matte. That's why it's not lining up. So yes, the render in place, but I already have the sped up version. So we have this, and is it this? Nope. And this, nope. There you are. Okay. So now we have the version sped up. There we go, 2x. And then we add the matte. There we go. Matte that, and then we'll matte this one. Same thing, add alpha output. And now we have the beauty pass and the lights on top of each other, perfectly matted out. But as you can see, it's very low contrast. So that's where we do the color correction. So then what I like to do is I will blend these two together. So I will make a compound clip, create, and then I render this in place. For this one, because it's got a matte, I do DNxHR, and for some reason 10-bit, this one specifically on Resolve doesn't allow exporting the alpha channel for some reason. So I just do the 12-bit, and then we just render that. Okay, we'll get rid of that for now. And now we have a pre-matted composite. As you can see, just to show. Just like that. And then I like to color correct it early on. So I have these nice LUTs, Impulse Z Ultimate for Vision. I forget. It doesn't tell me, but it has all these for like log and different cameras. Of course, they don't have my Panasonic, but I just do the log generic. One of my favorites to use is this Kodak Vision 350D. So we apply that. I'll hide the real quick, just so you can see the difference. I kind of like using that, and then I'll play with it from there. I'll probably up the gain, lower the lift, maybe lower the gamma a little bit, up the gain some more, something like that. It's a little yellow too, so maybe I'll just kind of move it over, something like that. I play around, and then I'll play around with it at the end just to make sure it lines up with the background. But that's kind of what we're looking at so far. And now, the next tedious part sometimes is, so the background. Having the background is half of what sells these. So this one particularly, the ship, what we're gonna do is, so I do a lot of keying here, so, because this one, we're kind of looking up at the saucer and then we kind of follow it down. So, first thing I will do is I will just mute this for now because it slows my workflow down. I will key this. I'll probably let it start up, and then we'll kind of have it come down. And then we'll kind of, again, it doesn't look like much yet. The background is what's going to sell it. Okay. So I'll kind of have it like that. Another thing I like to do is, it's time on here, I do output blanking for my final product, and I'll just do 2.35 for that cinematic aspect ratio. And it also helps because now I have more room to kind of move this around, like, you know, because there's that. So it helps, especially when these are shot more wide angle. It's really distorted when the ship's really close. So having this 2.35 ratio actually helps hide a lot of that distortion. And then once it gets further away, it kind of looks a little more proper. So we kind of do something like that. Now for the background, which is this is the tricky part. background, what I do is I'll zoom in just so I have some room to move, and then kind of have it start like that, and then we'll follow the ship. Let's see where's that other keyframe. Okay, we'll line it up there. So we'll follow the ship. So that's now going to go down. No, yeah, down. And over to the left a little bit. Let's see how that looks. Not perfect yet, but I'll tweak it. So it looks like it moves a little fast. So something that makes it easier too is I click this button right here in the corner for the keyframes, and it shows this little graph. And then I always make sure you smooth out every keyframe because it looks very ugly at the hard stops, as you can see here. Just hard stop. I hate that. So you can click like this button, and then you can kind of smooth it out. I'm probably gonna have to, yeah, see, I'm gonna do that, and I'm also gonna smooth this one out a little bit too. It's still moving a little fast. So this is the tedious part. I just have to tweak it until it looks right in my eyes. That's how I do it. This probably needs to move a little more to the right at the same time. So let's do this. Let's have this over there. I like that better. And then we'll do kind of like that. And let's also smooth that out. There we go. Now it's kind of following the trajectory a little more. But you can see the ship's still kind of moving down here. So actually, let's kind of do it like this. Okay, so let's smooth that out a little more. There we go. I kind of like the way that looks. And then as the ship's kind of moving off, I still like to have the background move just a little bit. So maybe we'll have it go kind of like that, and maybe a little more out. There we go. Something like that. And then make sure, let's do ease in and out, because there's another point now. Same thing here, we'll do ease in and out. It didn't give me the option before. Gotta have another point on the other side of it to give you that option, but there we go. So now, yeah, something like that. This is not how the final output looks. You've already seen it. I'm not going to redo the whole thing again. This is just too tedious, and it's a lot of work getting it perfect. But just kind of, you get the general idea. Something like that. And then what we'll do is we'll bring the color correction back there, and I'll also color correct the background. Probably the same way. I'll desaturate that a little bit. Something like that. And the ship, you can see the ship has a very hard movement. Let's see if let's fix that. Very hard stop. There we go. Much smoother. Something like that. Okay. And then, so it's pretty much completed now. My last final touches I like to do is I like to personally add film grain to it, which I think really helps sell this as well. It just looks too clean, or it hides defects pretty well. As you can clearly see, there's some in the ship. Ship's a little blurry and things like that. So let's see. Also, you can see the black levels of the ship. The dark spots of the ship are a little brighter than the space, so I could either... Space is already pretty bright, but I wanted to. I could kind of up it like that. Or what probably makes more sense is... There we go. Although I'm not a fan of that really contrasty look. But if you want to be a little more modern or realistic with it, kind of maybe something like that. I might even, with the background's black, but the ship's kind of like a reddish. So I might just add a little bit of red to the space, maybe a little bit of blue. Maybe match this up just a little bit better. Something like that. Okay. So, and then this is pretty computer intensive here. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll render this clip by itself before I add the grain. So now what I will do is I'll add the grain. So I already have one made. So what I like to use, oops, and this is what really slows everything down immensely. So I like to use, it's Magic Bullets Lux, it's called Lux. And I'll kind of just show you some of the basic settings I use. So I add some diffusion to kind of just give it that little glow. And also film specifically has this halation. You usually see it with like the red colors, just kind of, it's kind of a glow, but I don't know how to go explain it, but I kind of figured out how to add it. It's pretty subtle, but I think it just gives a little more authentic film look. And then I give it some little more diffusion. I made this months ago. I don't remember exactly what everything does, or like what's specific. You can kind of see this one gives an overall glow. This one I called fume diffusion. It's again very, very subtle, but it helps. And then I did have the negative colors in here film, but I don't use them anymore. But renoiser is a big one. I love the grain, how they make it on here. These are kind of my settings. Sometimes I'll sharpen through here, but I don't know if I'm going to today. But kind of the grain amount, 111%, size 27%, texture 12. Again, these are all the stuff I kind of played around with. They have some presets. I think I'm probably using this one right here or something. But they have presets here for like 35mm and Super 8 and 16, all that stuff. Classic 35, it's probably where I started, and then adjusted it from there with the Classic 35. But these are kind of just my settings. And I have two different, at some point I added a second one, very similar, but does different things, and so I have them about 65% a piece. Again, this is just from trial and error and things like that. And I also add a little bit of vignetting, just kind of give it that film look a little bit. So that's kind of what I add on top of everything to kind of just, and then you can see it kind of just hides. It just hides some, I think it hides some of the defects. Kind of makes a ship just, it gives it a little more texture that wasn't there before, or that just is very visible. Like you can kind of see it's blurring here because it's out of focus. It seems a little less noticeable. I like it. I think it just adds a little bit of character. And then I also, sometimes I have this film spots layer. I'll unmute that for now. But that one, this is all through DaVinci's effects, filters, but so just I had a very, very, very subtle camera shake, almost like the film's kind of shaking. And then there's film damage, which I kind of eliminate everything except for the dirt, and I have it very low. Dirt density, there's 2 for black, looks like 1 for white. I think 2 might be a little better. Let's see if you can even see that. You can kind of see some spots popping up here and there, and it just jitters ever so slightly. And yeah, because it zooms in just a little bit. Okay, and then that with that, and that's kind of generally it. And I just save it from there. And then we get the final output. And here's kind of the final output. This is the original video. I'm again, the one I made in a tutorial isn't perfect, and I'm not gonna play around with it since I already have this. But just to kind of give you an idea. And I think it looks like I put film spots in there. And then some other small things I added. You can see the nacelles are powered off, so I have to do that in post. There's a couple ways I can do it. It's a lot of work. I'm not gonna show you, but I draw that same kind of shape around it, and then I track it, and I just turn it black or whatever I do to eliminate that blue. Maybe I'll desaturate the blue, which kind of helps. But it's a lot of extra work that I don't really like doing all the time. And then also strobe lights, I have to add those in manually as well. I've tried tracking the ship, and it doesn't work. I have to manually key them in and follow the ship with them. And again, it's just very tedious, and I don't like doing it. But it does add an extra, layer of realism. Let's see, is there anything else? The background, internet. I have created my own Starfield now. I use 3ds Max, and there's like an old plugin for like stars in the back, and I rendered a bunch, and that's what I use now. This was a little older. This Earth was actually created by me in 3ds Max probably 10-15 years ago. Finally getting some use now. So I just add that in there. And so this background layer was just a composite picture I made. There's the Earth, and then that's with it in there. But yeah, I think that's kind of how I generally do it. Sometimes some videos are easier to make than others, especially if the green screen bleeds onto the ship. Or what a lot of times happens to me is when the ship's recording, it hits a bump somewhere along the track, and one of the layers just becomes completely out of phase pretty much, and I have to refilm it a lot of times. Or I spend a lot of tedious work of trying to line it back up by keying it in every frame, and that's always a nightmare. Same thing with green screening. Sometimes if the green or blue bleeds through, I have to spend extra work really trying to mask it off and hiding anything. And so, yeah, but generally, I would say the entire workflow for these videos is starting from filming all the way to finishing. Probably takes minimum 3 to 4 hours. It's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding in the end. But I also don't always know how these are going to turn out. So even for me, it's rewarding when I see just how it comes together in the end. Okay, I just wanted to also talk about some of the camera settings and things that I use. This is my main camera setup. It is a Panasonic Lumix S5. And the lens I like to use when I need autofocus is the 20 to 60. It's the kit lens, but it's phenomenal. Kind of put it here. Maybe I'll kind of show. Some of the settings that I like to use. So I always shoot in vlog, especially since I'm not dealing with the best amount of light here. And then I always shoot in 10-bit, 24 frames a second. I mean, 8-bit works fine too, but 10-bit does help with green screening a little bit. 24 frames because, again, lowest light. So what I've been doing is I've been doing the shutter speed at 1/25th instead of 1/50th. And then what I've been doing is I've been moving the ship slower, so that way I can speed it up and still give that 180-degree shutter angle. The important one is the aperture. Since we're dealing with miniatures, you want the aperture closed as much as humanly possible. So a lot of lenses go to f/16, f/22. Ideally, I would love f/32, f/40, which I did see that Nikon's 16 to 50 lens for their DX cameras goes all the way to 40, which is incredible. It just doesn't have the 3D tracking, so it's not usable, unfortunately. But so vlog, 24 frames. Stopped aperture as low as possible. And also newer lenses are better for that too. Some of the older lenses, when you stop the aperture down, they get soft. Even the Nikon lenses. My favorite is the 17 to 35. It just, because when it's attached to the Panasonic, there's no electronic communication. So it doesn't focus. So it works if the ship is static and staying in the same spot and rotating. But when the ship is actually moving, I need autofocus. So with the Lumix, it's really nice. There's a 3D tracking, and what I do is I click the ship. Okay, so we will lock it. It's not always perfect, unfortunately. Sometimes, especially if there's not a lot of light, the locking loses it, which is annoying and causes me to have to reshoot these sometimes. But when it works, it's great. So it's locked, and we'll just do a quick demonstration. I'm not making a video here. I'm just moving the ship just to show. So I'll hit record. I'll get the ship going. And then this 3D tracking just beautifully, when it works, it just follows it all the way. Keeps it in focus. It saves me from having to get a focus puller, which is another thing I don't want to have to buy right now. And so it looked like it's stuck with it. And then so for the tracking, I have to, let me see. There, AF. So I go to the custom AF settings, and I turn the AF speed very low, and the sensitivity very low. It helps, especially when the ship's moving slowly. So it's not, a lot of times, if it's moving too fast, or if the autofocus is too fast, it'll keep trying to search, and sometimes it'll hunt. So when I slow everything down, it really keeps it from hunting very often, and it moves with the ship pretty well. So those are some important settings I've discovered are needed here. Again, something you just have to play around with and tinker with. I have to change it occasionally depending on what I'm doing. And I do that with the ship 3 times. One with the green screen. Here it's a blue screen actually, which is nice when I can use it, because when I use a green screen, I have to then, when I do the beauty pass, I switch to the blue background, because the green sometimes will still bleed into the beauty pass, so I do the blue background. It's just an added step that adds time. So with ships like this that have 0 blue on them already, I can stick with the blue background and just make it a little quicker. So yeah, I do that. 3 passes. Just to reiterate, what I'm using is, so the slider is the brand is like Neewer. Neewer, I don't know how you pronounce it, but yeah, like a 39 inch slider. And then on top of it, I have an eMotimo TB3, which is a pan and tilter. Let's see, I'll kind of show you. So, and the controller is like a Wii controller or something, which is interesting. So I can do this. So how I have it, let's see here. So I have the tilter disconnected for now because it does seem to work better when there's only 2 plugged in instead of 3. So with the so I took off this, there was like a cover here. I did that, and I actually hardwired this motor from the Neewer into this plug right here. Let's see if I plug all 3 in, I can show you that, and then this. I was using software called Dragon Force, which you can hook it up to the computer and get the computer interface. Unfortunately, because this TB3 isn't fully compatible, it limits me in some ways. So I'm actually able to get most of what I can do straight through this thing with the remote, because it has a 2-point and a 3-point keying. So you can do, point A to B or point A to B to C and do 2 different things, which is really nice, which I can't do with Dragon Force on the computer because it's not fully compatible for some dumb reason. So, all right, so we have all 3 hooked up. So now I can kind of just, we got we got the tilting, and then we got, there we go. So yeah, so we got, and then we got, whoop. This is what happens. These are the issues. It runs over a cable because it's so crude and rudimentary how I do this. Those are the issues I run into sometimes. But yeah, so it does all 3 if I wanted to, which is really nice. So that's what I use for these videos. Yeah, and I think I've showed you all the camera settings that are important for this. I like to use, I like to hook it up to my phone and remote shutter from there. That way I'm not ever touching the camera, because even just tapping the camera can misalign the various angles. So I use that to make it a little easier. This thing works great for repeatability for the most part. I believe that's all. Those are kind of the main gist of it. And then I upload it and do the compositing. So yeah, again, thank you for watching, and thank you for your kind words and just showing appreciation for this as much as I love it. I really appreciate you guys, and if you guys like this tutorial, maybe I'll make more. Maybe I'll show kind of my more complex type videos. If this, again, this is my first attempt, so I hope this is what you guys are looking for. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to ask. I can help you out or let you know what I do. But yeah, until next time.